The SEO begins our winter showdown, a test of our production faculties and facilities to try to get this all working and underway. And to have and kick off this winter showdown, it's Bepic alongside me in Fernosis. We're super excited to get this one underway as we've got a selection of three very good teams coming into this one, Bepic, but we're not going to see one of those, aka GMU, until we see the victor of this Georgia Tech and UAH side matchup.
Right, 3-team bracket today. These are just show matches so we can test our production faculties, as Scott eloquently put. So there will be issues if you're watching right now, so be prepared for that. But stay tuned in. Feel free to point out as much wrong as you want to in Twitch chat. This is where we actually want you to do that. But single elim, 3-team bracket. Georgia Tech is taking on UAH first, and the winner of that plays the second place fall team in GMU. So you win this one, your reward is an even harder best of 3 in our final match of the day.
Yeah, so you better hope whoever comes away with a victory in this first game does so quite well, because they need to have that level of play and they need to have that level of confidence to be able to take down a team like GMU. And speaking of that, you have to have confidence on nearly any map stepping into this. You have to kind of face off in a 1v1 prior to the actual in-game matchup in your map band selection screen and in the entire process for it. A lot of the times we'll say teams win or lose in agent select, or they'll win and lose in map ban, and map ban is the first out of those selections. If you fail to pick a map or select maps that are privy to your team's lineups or your strategies in the first place, you're going to unfortunately face down a very poor loss, or maybe get away with a good map one, but then the remainder is just something you were never prepped for in the first place. We see Pearl and Abyss are knocked off first and foremost. That means Haven and Lotus will be set into the pool, and keep in mind, Ascent's not in the books anymore, so we don't have to see that anymore. However unfortunate it is for a lot of people, as you have Ascent, which isn't technically there, then Bide following up as Fracture is actually our decider. So pretty good selection, especially having Lotus be in for the new map.
I'm excited to start on Haven because, for those that don't know, I haven't casted Valorant in a very long time. I was picked up off the poverty-stricken streets of SEL Rocket League to join Scott today for the Valorant show matches, so I am familiar with Haven. It's been a minute since I've hopped in the Valorant booth, but that is a familiar map for me, as Georgia Tech's pick as well, and they're kind of the newcomers, led by our old producer Karuto, or Colt as we know him. So I'm excited to see his return to the SEL, as it's been a while since he's joined us on the map or the booth or anything of the sort.
We also have Gray, who's a pseudo observer. He did the B streams for Valorant last semester, as well as did a little bit of production work early on for SEL, or for Gaming Oasis, to say, at a time period. So we've got a lot of ex-members of the general family for SEL and the crew, so it's going to be a very interesting first selection for the match. And then you have GMU, who we've just known for a while as being one of the best teams, one of the best programs in the SEL, and just the history that they have. So while they don't have any familial connections, they do have a place in our hearts, and there's a reason why they're up there being that second seed. We're going to have to see how much they bury whatever team gets through to the end of this one, if they're even capable of doing so, with two new players in their roster, it looks like, based off our League OS sheet. So how they mesh in for this semester, whether those players graduated or this was a play strategically from their coaching staff saying we really like how they fit in with this roster, we'll have to see. As new semester, new me, new semester, new year, new me. We'll have to see if these teams can hold up with however new members they have, because GT definitely has some new members in their roster.
And I am curious as well to see if the, grand finals of these show matches holds up to the streak that we're on right now of SEL grand finals going the complete distance. I mean, map 5 in the fall split of season 5, the legendary 5-map series we saw in the spring at LAN. I mean, we have been treated the last several grand finals, and it was UGA beating George Mason in the finals of the fall split of SEL Valorant this year. But hey, GMU can avenge that, I suppose. Now that we're still in the off season, it's still a chance for them to show everyone what they're made of.
Yeah, this may not be Georgia you're facing. It's Georgia Tech if they get there at the end of the day, right? But you can be like, hey, we still beat the state of Georgia, right? That's kind of like the idea you're hoping for. Whether that pans out to be true or not, or whether or not it's UAH getting there, time will tell. But I know that they're fairly upset still about that loss to Georgia, especially the interview afterwards. Me and Dallas still real thinking about that interview with the Georgia player afterwards. And he's like, no, we just decided to kick it in. We were just trolling the entire time. We're really upset with ourselves. You know, it was going to be easy the whole time. We knew it. Love to see if George Mason go, okay, yeah, we've had enough of that nonsense. Let's go ahead and kick it into high gear and put some pep in our step. As we see our agent selection for the map of Haven, you expect this to be fairly standardized. Neon obviously did receive a major nerf back in December, at the start of December, so you're not expected to see Neon really in full play anymore. Obviously going to 8 pips needed for your ultimate, 10 seconds for its only last, slide inaccuracy, only having one slide. It's a major hit to a pivotal character or pivotal agent for this map. So seeing you kind of default back to Jet is kind of expected, but what's maybe unexpected is seeing Gray actually lock in Teo and saying, okay, new agent, let's try it out on Haven, a tried and true map. Let's see what we can do this initiator.
And he was the one vouching to bring Tejo into the agent pool for these show matches. We were having a discussion pre-tournament, I suppose, about whether or not we were going to use the new map pool, use the new agent. But hey, great, he's putting his money where his mouth is right now. He got the agent in the pool today, and he's rocking in map 1.
We'll have to see how truly strong this is. A lot of people believe that new agents when they come out are obviously going to be bloated, but keep in mind this is a agent that is immediately, I believe, unlocked for VCT Pacific Americas, if I'm correct, or Asian. They're unlocked immediately somewhere. I remember seeing a Twitter post about this from the head of director for, I think, Southeast Asia, was talking about they understand that players are going to be a little bit hesitant to play this, but at the same time, a lot of the players have already had access to the early access period for Tejo, and they do feel like Tejo's in a very good spot. And legitimately speaking, I think this may be one of the better agent releases for balancing stakes, but Dallas is surely in the belief that if there's any role that is going to be bloated on release, it will be Initiator, and I tend to agree. It does feel like maybe there's a whole lot in the kit that needs to be a little bit scaled back, like the nades doing damage through multiple levels, so if Fracture comes in for that Decider map, despite if you have a KJ, which is very valuable on that map, you really can't place that anywhere without it being cleared instantly with a single nade in the process, which is just ridiculous for Initiator to have.
It is a mirror matchup otherwise. I mean, Breach is the only difference, Breach and Tejo, between Georgia Tech and UAH here. So, interesting there. Even though it is a show match, both sides pulling out their best, for the most part, lineups, depending on whether you favor Tejo or Breach. But we'll see what happens. Just round 1 here, UAH and Georgia Tech. And I'm excited to be here, Scott, because I haven't gotten to watch a ton of Valorant since it was introduced to the SCL. Full-time jobs will do that to you. But as the director of league operations, I'm super excited to get more familiar with all the schools in the Valorant section of the SCL this year.
There's a lot of action still to be had in Valorant for the season, and there was a whole lot last season. I'm just so intrigued to see what's going to come, as obviously game changes come forward, but also roster changes, and just the way that collegiate just tends to scale forward. You do have a first blood finally going down as was attempted to be planted. Not going to go too much in Georgia Tech's favor, as it is a UAH onslaught privy with these ghosts in hand. Good flip from Dublasma, but that's really going to be the only success, bar that initial frag from the side of Georgia Tech, and UAH will defensively power through round 1 and take their victory.
It was a full-out brawl on C. The initial push looked good, but UAH shut that down fairly handily. And, you know, Caruso was talking about how he thinks this Georgia Tech team is going to roll through everybody today, show matches or not. And that's a poor start to the campaign of the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have confidence, right? As a captain, as a coach, or you gotta have confidence that your team can do anything, and maybe it's one of these cases of speak it and it will come true, right? Just trying to wish it into existence. But pistol round's nothing to really drive off of. Georgia Tech, they would have been a lot happier getting the plant down and getting a little bit of extra credits, maybe a kill or 2 extra. Just a little bit of credit value to their team, and hoping that round 3 will be a little bit better on the eco. Since they didn't get as much as wanted in round 1, round 2 will be equally as important. They want to get at least 2 of these weapons in UH's hands dropped, but not having the weapons, so not having the ability, it seems like, to cut that distance to play with these pistols is going to be even more of a problem, as 2 players already dusted and Pug's down to 3 HP. Georgia Tech have no way to close this gap.
No, that was a window hole if I've ever seen one. That's clean. Fly and Gray getting in on the action very early on in round 2, and Fly, I'm not sure that they know anyone's peeking into Garage here, but Karuto's looking for an opening. Can't seem to find any access to Garage, so it's back to B. We'll see how Gray fares this time around.
So a quick use of the guided salvo from Tejo just a moment ago. Apologies.
Grounded.
Doesn't do much.
One
Yes.
enemy remaining.
Frag does
30
go in the favor
seconds
here for UAH on site.
Spike
Pug,
down,
despite
B.
3 HP, still scraps one before falling, but Fur
Take
has no
what's
problem
useful.
dealing with both of them and Double Off Smile to close out round 2. And Georgia Tech didn't find more than one kill in that entire round, which means they've had 3 up to this point. Weapons will be a little bit shy going into round 3. Yes, they'll have proper rifles, but armor and maybe even economy for utility could be up in the air. As you see, Double Smile does not have all of their kit in their back pockets. Georgia Tech may be a little bit more scrappy than they'd expect for round 3, but A site's a pretty darn good site to try to hit and pound that rock to get a good success for round 3 off the books.
I really haven't even tried A site just yet. It was C round 1, B, or just around B site, and never really got access to it there in round 2. So trying their hand on the opposite side of Haven, and Sandbot's already got a bit of information there and hasn't called for any immediate movement. They're really just holding firm around A site UAHR, but Georgia Tech will bide their time here.
We're seeing an interesting strategy coming out from Gray on UAH with Tejo, just using the guided salvo to slow down and stall the push in through A main. That gives your players a little bit of time to maybe use a Marshall or an Outlaw down from within pit and try to work that short sight for an early frag against Georgia Tech. Knowing that they have these proper rifles in their hands, it's just about finding that instantaneous value and stalling them out for the time being. Because you do hear a lot of noise off towards the A site, and UAH will have to be very privy to that intel, now alluding to the 2 players that are offside to maybe go for the rotate. Baba stuck within a quick use of the guided salvo. Not a great spot to be hiding within, but it doesn't stop Jay still from finding the first frag of this round. Pug now finding a second. The plant will inevitably go down, but he's stuck up in heaven, has some sightlines, but doesn't take quite enough of an advantage for it, and Baba is able to snuff out their life quick as that. So you've got a 2 versus 5, time running out. A post-plant snare and UAH are likely to just wait and stall, or maybe pray they can get an exit frag or 2 in Georgia Tech's escape.
Last player
Not
standing.
making any real moves. Fly's been taken out, and just a single UAH Fur is just going to sit back and actually move in. No sitting back, in fact. Taking the front foot and losing their life as a result of it, but that round was lost well before Fur's attempt there at the end. So Georgia Tech, they used their rifles well and finally get on the board.
Despite the stall being attempted coming out from Gray, it does not keep Georgia Tech away from sight, and the guns from Georgia Tech just outdo what UAH are bringing in regards to their arsenal. But now you have a defensive side where you won the first 2. You didn't really buy too much if you were Fly. You have the eco for it, so why not bring out the boomstick? And Neon was fairly dominant with the boomstick previously, but a lot of times you'd bring a Neon and a Jet, or just the Jet if you were just going to be an operator-reliant team on the defensive side for Haven. And now that Jet is back to being the undisputed #1 goat of Haven again with Neon's nerfs, there will be no question the operator needs to go in the hands of your duelist, and your duelist needs to hit their shots, and Pug just does it better despite the role being totally different.
Nicely done. That's an opening duel you love to see won by the rifler there. A great way to get back into this map, as Georgia Tech started a bit slow, but they have certainly ramped it up from here, and they don't even continue to press around A site. They take that open pick. They know the op is on the opposite side of the map, and they move right towards C, where they have near full access now, complete access to C sites, and they've lost a couple of bodies, but still have the man advantage.
The trapwire gives you the information needed to secure your 1, but you still have 3 players on Georgia Tech that need to be dealt with. It will go down. Nothing going to stop this.
Spike
You do have
planted.
Trapman, who's collected Fly's operator. It can start to try to get that little bit of intel, a little bit of a peek down in from defender spawn. But that being closed off by a dark cover makes things impossible for you. Recon bulled out. No real intel about where that's been cleared from. The expectation will be it's behind plat. And Trapman will say, yeah, it would be a nice idea. It'd be kind of cool to step into sight and get a couple picks here or there, but the operator is ultimately more important to our roster. Let's fall back. Let's save this. A secondary rifle to go alongside it. And now you have UAH kind of in this mindset where they have to force alongside the rest of this team. They have to make sure that the 3 remaining players that died in this round can buy. And if they can't, they still have to bring nearly as much as possible and burn their eco even further, because they made a decision of not just the operator to save, but the rifle in Sandbot's hands as well.
And it is the smart decision. Even though it is a show match, you want to make sure that you are making the right, safe moves. If you do want to win, if you're just here to have fun, then, you maybe go after some aggressive picks there at the end. But it's safe from both sides. There wasn't really any kind of hunt also after the round, so just playing it safe, seeing what you can get after round 4 concludes.
Protect our home
UH will opt instead to go for a glass cannon. If you're bringing out a tank like this, you need to make sure you have players in front of the operator to try to bring some instantaneous value. Jet is 1 pip off from the ultimate. This is likely why we see UAH not going for a rifle or a semi-SMG buy to go alongside the 2 that were saved. They know they can have 3 proper weapons up in front of them. The Blade Storm now in hands for Jet to fly, and of course the operator in Trapman's hands, and then of course having the rifle previously in your Omens. They'll try to play a little bit more hesitant if you're Fly, though, all the way up into A main. Wait for any audio cue to be given. The first one will likely be the dark cover sent out in towards Garage, as you do have that being made and the call out being adjusted upon for UAH's defense, as your Cypher will start to likely fall back towards back of C site instead of sitting so close up inside of Garage and off towards that link side. Fur is in a very dangerous position, but likely using their camera to try to get as much information as possible in through that corridor. Sambot, the player who maintained a rifle at the end of last round, waits for the right timing and is very aware of the fact that there are players just pressing on B main's door.
It does feel like UAH know what Georgia Tech is up to, and Georgia Tech have just halted their push. That smoke has kept them off of the site for the moment. Sambot chunked out just a little bit right there, down to 40 HP, and a bit of work to do here, as the site is somewhat open for the one player between Georgia Tech momentarily and taking C site, and still just be a slow push deep into UAH territory, and Georgia Tech
10 seconds left.
4v4 here with time against them. Will get the spike down.
Had to rotate initially off towards B. They wanted B. They got stalled by the smoke. They wanted a tailwind. They fell back against it, and just hasn't been enough out of everything from Georgia Tech, and the pacing has been leaving some to be desired. Though with the Hunter's Fury able to get something off of it for impact stalling. It's really the gunplay afterwards with Trapman and Fly falling victim to the Vandal in Pug's hands to clutch up round 5 and secure that 3rd round win now in a row for Georgia Tech, and officially burying UAH even further into a downward spiral in the defensive side.
I'm so glad that that 1v2 is how the round concluded, because I felt we were robbed of it earlier when Pug was kind of scouting back towards A site and saw the op, and I don't think he knew that the Blade Storm was there around A long, but knew there was that heavy presence towards A site. We never got the engage, but that is how the round concluded, and Pug showed that I guess he would have won the 1v2 either way, even though it was against an op and a Blade Storm. So nicely done, and well, Georgia Tech, after a 0-2 start, have stormed out in front early on here on Haven.
It's already 90 damage attributed to Trapman at the very start of round 6. The Shock Dart connects against 3 players in Georgia Tech's side. Now with that recon boat being cleared and a little bit of information from its first ping, you now can fairly securely say that Georgia Tech are knocking on the door of this A site. You're more likely than not be ready to send either your Cypher back wrapping around in through attacker spawn, maybe that Jet to wrap through and try to maybe play within that link connecting B and A instead. The fallback will have to be made eventually from Georgia Tech if they do not choose to secure, but they get that first blood, screaming, hey, there's one less player, one less opposition now on site, and Sambot's been spotted just behind the Radiant Knight stack. Let's send out some breach utility, stun and concuss, force them to use their shrouded step, play in for securance of site, and now with just 10 seconds later, they've guaranteed an easy and free plant with a single dark cover up towards Heaven and another one off towards Link, just to be that extra bit of saving grace for security.
And Greg has taken that Heaven position again here around A. Wasn't as effective as I'm sure he would have liked to be earlier on when we did have the one round concentrated towards A site, but Fly and Greg having a pair of kills to make this retake a little bit easier, but ultimately it's Georgia Tech and their concentrated firepower around the site that hold and gain a 4th in a row.
The cell turn just didn't really feel like it was very valuable for UAH there, and having your initiator have a lot of their utility, or arguably your main initiator here, as Trapman's there for information utility, having your main initiator for util for information be snuffed out so quickly for their utility grab up in Heaven just makes it just a distraction truly for Georgia Tech instead of actually a solution to the onslaught of players in your direction. UAH need to find a better way to digest the Georgia Tech offense.
Get out of my way.
While this round will not inevitably be the best way to do so, as it is an eco round coming out from UAH, it will at least give them a bit of information about how to deal with Georgia Tech's offense. If they can start to piece together the slowness, the pacing, maybe who and where they put players specifically. Can't really judge too much on the Jet who went forward. They were at a Blade Storm. Their position is going to be very different this round in comparison to a normal default round for them. But you get that pick, which means for UAH, one less player, conceivably a weapon in front of you if you happen to buy as well as using the Blade Storm for Georgia Tech, though I don't know why you would necessarily do that in a round like this when you're already so far ahead. And you also can see that as Hate, they're down a duelist. They have no way to close that site swiftly. They have to take a slow approach in, and when the choice is made, when the call is made, they have to sprint, and you need to read into that correctly.
It is a wasted Blade Storm as well. I'm not sure Kuro even got a knife off right there. Just found a bullet to the dome immediately here, and Tech without their leader. Doing all right. Haven't seen anybody else on the defensive side of Haven, but posturing around B and Garage. Haven't gained too much space in. Though it looks like the execute is incoming. There's no one on B side to hold it, so looks like UAH is playing for retake if Georgia Tech gets through the smokes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and sit this plant down in default. Nothing really there for UAH to deny this. Maybe Gray had a chance for some utility, but having used God at Salvo just moments prior, didn't stall nearly enough against Georgia Tech. Sandbot forward, it's Trapman again. Sandbot instead. Furry with a fine wonderful folly, but Trapman's now collected a Vandal, and it's a 1v1. Bobo wrapping behind center stack. B site almost available for UAH. And despite the oddity of this eco round, UAH dropped this to a very manageable 1v1 and nearly snuffed it out from underneath Georgia Tech's fingers.
Credits to the Yellow Jackets for finding a way